you're missing if you don't do this work. And I say work because it's the most rewarding thing you can do to come into your body, because you get to the place where it's like it tends to be on this planet that we kind of have our lives and sex over here in a corner. And actually what we're doing with this, it's like, oh, let's come into our bodies. Let's enjoy everything that happens in our body. It's like, I just had a really delicious breakfast, and it's like, oh yeah, let me just enjoy that before I went for a walk as well this morning. It's like, oh, let me just enjoy how my body feels. So it's not about, oh, let's enjoy sex and get through our lives. No, let's become so embodied that our lives, that we become that space where we're living orgasmically.
Today's guest is Fiona Cutts. Empowers ladies to go on the journey from shy girl to sexually confident women. Her own experience as a debilitatingly shy child and young woman who was also interested in pleasure and sex. Sensing there must be more to it than she was currently experiencing and unsure where to find it, she found it in possibly the most unlikely places. Serious chronic illness. Her recovery journey led to her awakening and deepening the connection to her own body, discovering she loved to sing and dance and express herself. With that came sexual expression and pleasure, and what she loves to call orgasmic living. That space where you just love being alive. Welcome, Fiona.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Oh, well, I'm certainly going to learn a few things in this conversation. With that said, what's one of the most courageous things you have done?
Oh, good question. It's like I look at my life, and it's interesting, maybe some of you who are listening identify as shy, and a lot of things when you're shy can feel like they're really courageous. So I'm just like, as you say that, I've got a choice of, I don't know, 1,000 things I could say. So what am I going to say? So I'm going to say when I had chronic fatigue syndrome. So this was the thing, as you said in this sort of roundup at the beginning, this was the thing that got me on the path to sexual healing. I think when I was so ill, and I think for the first couple of years, I was just like, oh, if I have a reflexology session, that will heal me. If I have a homeopathic pill, that will heal me. And then at a certain time, I was like, no, I need to look at me. I need to know what I've done to contribute to this. And that led to me going on the path, which is still continuing in a way, led me going on a path of energy healing, training as an access consciousness life coach, and then training as a sexological body worker. And I think these trainings, and it's interesting, sometimes with the ladies I work with, I say this, it's like to go on a self-development journey, a spiritual journey, requires a lot of courage, because it's kind of like you have to go from seeing the world as something that happens to you to, oh, I wonder what I did to, oh, yes, I didn't like the way I behaved in this. Oh, yes. So you have, but when it's about sex, it's even more so. It's almost like, for me, it's kind of like self-development on steroids. It's like, oh my God, so I guess that sort of journey, that continuing journey, is the most courageous thing I've done and am still doing.
So tell me about your journey from shy girl to sexually confident woman. And I know you do that in your work, but I'll talk to you about your work a bit later on. But yeah, so is this what from your own journey led you into doing the work you do?
Yes, absolutely. So I was shy with everything. And some of the ladies I work with are kind of like, you know what, I'm not shy in the rest of my life, but there's something about sex. But for me, it was everything. And it came very directly from my childhood. So my dad was very, very authoritarian and very critical. And my mum didn't really do anything to help my brother and me. It was both of us. He picked on both of us, and in different ways. And it wasn't physical, but it was verbal violence. And it just made me think that the best way to live my life was basically not to be seen, to to stay below the radar and be perfect.
Mm.
Easy. And it's funny to say that because for a while I was pretty good at all those things. I mean, I wasn't enjoying myself, I wasn't being me, but I kind of created the quote unquote perfect life that fitted what my dad thought I should be doing. And in terms of sex, it's like I had no sex education, none at all, really, beyond kind of mainly knowing through not really being told, but knowing that sex was bad. I shouldn't be doing it before I got married. And occasionally my dad would get so angry that he would accuse me of having sex. And in the meantime, I was kind of interested in exploring, but also lacking self-confidence. And I think and so a low self-esteem tends to mean that you meet a person either with low self-esteem or an unkind person. And it's interesting. I'm just about to publish my book, which is very exciting. And in the book, two of the things that I talk about, it's like, yes, I had the things that set me up for being shy with sex. But then I also had the sort of meeting the people who had no idea how to, well, we neither of us were inhabiting our body. And when you try to have sex from the space of not inhabiting your body, it's a bit like my sexological bodywork tutor used to say, it's like skeletons trying to have sex together, which is extreme. But it kind of, well, it shows it's extreme, but it works to give you the sense of how it can be. But I also attracted unkind men because I was so lacking in self-esteem. It was kind of like, I was pretty and I had the great figure, and I was like, oh, he's nice. Oh, and it's like often it was the unkind men and the sex was really bad. And I didn't have any idea how to change that. And that was one of the factors in me becoming ill. It's like I say one of the factors because it's almost like I wasn't expressing myself in my life. It's like I was becoming who my dad wanted me to be. And that was with everything, but it was definitely with sex too. I wasn't, it's like in a way I was expressing myself with sex because I was kind of like, well, you might tell me not to have sex, but I'm just going to go and have sex. So there was that sort of reaction to what he said, but it wasn't from a freedom space because I had no idea how to express myself sexually, no idea at all. I had no idea how to express myself in any area of my life. But with sex, like I said, it tends to be more extreme. So I was really sort of well, I guess I was, for a
Mm.
long while, I was interested in pleasure, but then kind of life took over. And it's like I had a really difficult time for a while, divorce and breakdown and blah, 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 as a lot of us encounter. And I completely forgot that I was interested in a different kind of pleasure. It's like everything had begun to shut down and I was in survival mode, I guess.
Gosh, that's awful. But I'm glad you've come through all of that.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, because it can be debilitating, like you said, so many things, and it all stems from one, and then it can be a roller coaster. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, snowball effect. So you have some frameworks. You have the three-step framework to go from shy girl to sexually confident woman. So tell me more about that, please.
Yes, yes. So it's based on on what I now see worked for me. I see because I mean I had no idea that I was living the journey that I would then turn into something for other people. I was just kind of stumbling along, living my life, doing things wrong, and I was like, and I also see it's like it's also as a result of working with women over the last few years and seeing, oh, actually, what worked for me is also working for them. And so the first part of it I actually call foreplay. And foreplay is like you imagine all this sexy stuff. In this case, foreplay is about coming into your own body. It's about inhabiting your own body. And it's like I said, for me, it's like I had this beautiful body, but I wasn't inhabiting her. I was kind of scared of the way that I used to look. And it's like I kind of wanted the attention from men, but I wasn't willing to receive it. I kind of wanted the great sex, but I had no idea how to have it. And so, what happened for me when I started my energy healing journey was that it was a lot about, hey, Fiona, did you even know that you have a body? Oh, this is my body. Hello, body. And my body at this point was, screaming loud. I was extremely tired. It's like I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And I mean, I know some people literally can't leave their beds. I was at the point where I could always go out for an hour or two a day, but basically my life was so limited. And my body, I guess my body had been talking to me probably for decades before I got ill, probably my whole life, and I hadn't been listening. And so that's what happens when you don't listen to your body speaks louder. So part of how I teach the ladies to be in their body is literally to be, hey, body, just be present. And one really good way to start inhabiting your body more is to ask your body about everything that concerns your body. So this morning, I'm like, hey, body, what would you like to wear? Oh, this little cute little white top. Oh, okay, let's wear that. And I had no idea that that was what my body was going to choose. I had some other dresses lined up, and it's like, no, it's this. Thank you very much. Say, okay. And the same with the food that you eat. It's like we can be very habitual with food. We can sometimes decide, oh, this new program, I need to eat keto, or I need to eat raw vegan, or whatever. And it's like, hey, I imposed these really extreme eating regimes on my body, which actually, I read in a book that it should be good. And sometimes it was good for a while, but you have to be really, really present to see, because, these systems are just systems. They may actually not be true for you and your body. So it's really about checking in. What would you like to eat? What would you like to wear? And then what kind of exercise would you like to do? It's like I was kind of guilty of this in the past, that I'd be like, I'm going to run up mountains and do this and do that. And I was like, well, why have I got ill? Well, I never asked. It was like I did it in a way that didn't really include my body. And then, of course, if we're talking about this, it's also like, hey, buddy, who would you like to have sex with? And often our mind decides, not just when we're teenagers, but, if you're single and you're a bit older than a teenager, often our mind will decide either that guy looks hot, or it may even be, it looks like he's stable. It looks like he'll be able to look after me. And there's nothing wrong with choosing someone who's stable. But if you only go for someone who's stable and you haven't checked in with your body, whether it's exciting and fun for your body to be with that guy, it's probably not gonna last.
Yeah, I can understand that, definitely. And there's a lot more to it than I would imagine, so it's brilliant.
Thank you. And I think a lot of people, it's like there are some sex coaches who, it's like I'm on some of their email lists where they're kind of like, the first thing you get is how to have a better orgasm, how to pleasure him. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Why wouldn't you want a better orgasm? Why wouldn't you want to pleasure him or her better? Of course. But actually, you're missing if you don't do this work. And I say work because it's the most rewarding thing you can do to come into your body, because you get to the place where it's like it tends to be on this planet that we kind of have our lives and sex over here in a corner. And actually what we're doing with this, it's like, oh, let's come into our bodies. Let's enjoy everything that happens in our body. It's like I just had a really delicious breakfast this morning for me here. And it's like, oh yeah, let me just enjoy that before I went for a walk as well this morning. It's like, oh, let me just enjoy how my body feels. So it's not about, oh, let's enjoy sex and get through our lives. No, let's become so embodied that our lives are, you use this phrase, orgasmic living, that we become that space where we're living orgasmically.
Yeah.
So that's that's the first step. And actually, maybe I maybe having said it becomes that place where we're living orgasmically, maybe the term foreplay, it's like, maybe it is a good term.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So part two is called me play. And part two is, so you've become more embodied. And this is exactly it, your question. It's like, what do you mean parts 1 and 2 don't have to do with anything else? There's no man riding up on a white horse and saving us, or no lady coming up on a white horse and saving us. It's like, no, I'm sorry. Well, I say, I'm sorry. It's like the most valuable thing you can do to come into your body, start to enjoy everything. But the second space me play is where it starts to get sort of a little bit spicy and sexy. And the exercises that I give the ladies, and which I've done myself, the easiest way to explain them is to say that they're mindful masturbation.
Mhm.
But as soon as I say the M word, not the mindful bit, the masturbation bit, as soon as I say, as soon as I say the M word, people go, "Ah." And it's like, so I say that to explain it. But basically, there are different exercises that are sweet ways of waking up your whole body. And
Mhm.
in the same way that I said that we can have our lives and we can have sex, we can also be in the space where we have our bodies and then we have our vaginas and our breasts and the sort of quote unquote naughty bits.
Mhm.
And and actually that's crazy. It's like we can enjoy the whole of our bodies. And I mean, there are so many things that come from these exercises of finding out what's true for your body. There are so many things that come from them. But one of
Mhm.
the things that occurs is that we start to kind of see our vaginas, our breasts, as just a beautiful part of our body. Yes,
Mhm.
they're a part that can give us loads of pleasure, more pleasure than than other places, but actually other places can give you pleasure. And when you start to wake up your whole body, this is where you can actually start to have more of a full body orgasm. So it's like often sex, the way it's done on the planet at the moment, is kind of about genital contact. It's like, yeah, you
Mhm.
do a bit of foreplay, but it's more about the genitals. And it's like, great, I've had an orgasm, she's had an orgasm. And it's like, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but a sort of a
Mhm.
short, sharp clitoral orgasm, which is probably what most women are familiar with, it's great. Who wouldn't love that? It's great. And there's so much more available. And
Mhm.
just starting to sort of wake up your whole body, but also start to become more familiar with the whole of your vulva. So the outside part of your female, I hate this word, genitalia. What a horrible word. But starting to become familiar inside as well, it kind of gets you to that space where you start to appreciate and love your vagina, your vulva, your breasts. And it's like some people are fortunate that they don't have this big journey to
Mhm.
some people's, particularly some of the younger people. I mean, I really admire some of the younger women who come in now, but for a lot of us, we have to do I say work, but it's the most fun thing in the world,
Mhm.
and and it's like some magic starts to happen because you start to it's like, if you see the vagina, the vulva, as a sort of heart of our femininity, it's like it's when you start to let go of these layers of stuff around it, you start to step into more confidence, step into more love for you. And the same with touching your whole body, because although we may think we have more judgment about genitals, and probably we do, one of my clients was saying the other day that she literally, so she's been working with me, and we work by Zoom, but I'll be like leading her in something, and she's able to touch herself like this when she's with me, but actually she can't do these exercises on her own. She isn't even able to touch like a neutral part of her body because of the experience that she's had, and that's all
Mhm.
starting to change for her.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, obviously, if you can't touch yourself, how can somebody else touch you? Or if you allow someone to touch you, how many barriers, how difficult
Mhm.
it is for you. And so starting to change that is a really, really big step in all kinds of ways. And that's a sort of small example of what you can get. I guess the bigger example is that you can start to have full body orgasms and enjoy your body all of the time.
Mhm. I can imagine. Wow.
So, and yeah, and then the third step, it's like finally after doing doing the work play, and it's like it is. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it can be really, really, really confronting. Oh, imagine this lady. why can't I touch myself? It's like, that's really, really,
Mm.
really confronting. And yet the pleasure, the joy, the ease, and the sort of the love for yourself that you start to have, and the way that that kind of goes out into the world around you, it's like this work will change your whole life. But part 3, you'll be pleased to hear, is about connecting with your partner, or with,
Mm.
with a new partner, if you don't have a lover, partner, husband, wife in your world yet. And what what you find is, when you've done all this work, it's like people think that stage 3 is going to be the most frightening, the most difficult, because as shy women, it's kind of like, how am I going to speak? How am I going
Mm.
to say what I want? How am I going to pleasure him? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, we find that we're completely different already, because all the work that we've done has led to us loving our bodies more, being more confident. And even it's like having the possibility to be more articulate about what we like sexually, because often we don't know what we like sexually. But if we've spent this time kind of investigating, if you like, our own bodies, we've got
Mm.
way more sense of what turns us on, what doesn't turn us on, what kind of touch we like, because we've been experimenting with all those things ourselves. So at its best, it's like, what I encourage with this part is, it's kind of like, I'll give you the example of kind of old-fashioned sex or bad
Mm.
sex, which is kind of like, and I'll talk about man and woman. I mean, this is the same if you're same-sex partners, but it's like the man will kind of touch your breast, touch you here, oh, he's ready now, and then he'll go, can I go inside? Okay, you can go inside, and it's like, boom, it's over. And not much fun. I mean, I've done
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of it's younger. And, whereas what we're inviting in here is this space of, in the same way as you've been kind of like, oh, here's my body. Oh,
Mm.
my body's more beautiful than I thought. It's like, I find my body way more beautiful now at the age I am now than I did when she was 21 and conventionally beautiful. It's like I'm much, much closer to my body now. And so that space that you have with your own body that you've cultivated, you then have with another person. Oh, here's this amazing body with me. Let me
Yeah.
see what's going to turn them on today. Let me explore. And so it's kind of this mutual play space. And the whole thing of it, and it's like, it becomes much less orgasm focused or goal focused. Yes, I mean, orgasms are great, of course, but actually, when you get into that space where you're kind of playing and exploring, it's like the whole interaction becomes orgasmic. And I don't mean in a climax way. I mean, it can
Mhm.
lead to a climax, but it's just really, really, this is my favorite word, just really yummy. It's like hanging out with another person, discovering their body in a sweet, gentle, kind way. And when I say that, it's like, that sounds like a woman's way to have sex. And I'll just be really open at this point and say what's true for me. And you'll see whether,
Mm.
women listening, whether it's true for you as well. If I have that kind of sweet waking up of my body, I can be totally up for sort of really being taken by a man and having that kind,
Mm.
having him in a way dominate, and it be coming into a kind of a more, the opposite of gentle. It's like, it can be rough, it can be all of that. But for me, I need to have that sort of, the connection comes through
Yeah.
establishing that sort of yumminess and kindness. And rough sex and, full on penetrative sex where, you sort of feel the man's everywhere. It's like, that can, when that's from a place of kindness, that can be really delicious for a woman. Or so I
Mhm.
should keep it about me. I mean, I find it's delicious for me, and I see that with a lot of my clients. So if as women you relate to that, because I know for me, sometimes I kind of make myself wrong. It's like, oh, I like all the sweet stuff, and now I'm like, no, hey, hang on a moment. In the right circumstances, I like it all. It just has. But in the
Mm.
same way, it's like, we have to develop that connection with another person, and you'll find out what's true for me, for you. It's like, for me, that comes through this sort of slow exploratory touch, and that may not be true for you. But find out. It's like, sex is better when there's some emotional connection too, and that
Absolutely.
doesn't Yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to therefore be, with somebody you've known for 20 years. No, I
Mhm.
mean, I've been at, say, a Tantra festival and had a really amazing energetic connection with someone I just met. It's like it's inexplicable, but you can, when you trust yourself, you can know whether you trust another person. And this is another factor. It's like we've been developing trust in ourselves through all these
Mm.
exercises. So then we have a trust with another person, and you'll know, oh, actually, although I don't know this person, actually, this sounds like a teenager. I'm going to go all the way, or whatever that is. And that phrase just
Mm.
came into my head. But you know that you can trust yourself more, so you probably won't end up doing that with someone who's going to be unkind, because you've kind of, all of this work that you've done has developed your intuition as well.
Yeah, and I guess it's like feeling safe as well.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that word actually,
Mm.
because that's what we're developing in part one,
Mm.
kind of being in your body. We're developing that safety in our bodies. When we're
Mm.
safe in our bodies, nobody else can actually take us out of that safety. But
Mm.
let's choose people who are going to be fun. Let's not choose the unkind people. It's like the unkind people, you lose their ability to really, excuse me, fuck with us when we become in really empowered. But why would we want that
Mm.
when we can have that sort of yummy, delicious, exploratory play? Why would we want to be with somebody unkind, even if they're not really going to hurt us and put us off track in our life for decades like they may have done before? It's let's choose the kind people, and you'll find that with stage 3 you find that a lot of it kind of becomes automatic because you've done the work on yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. The journey of sexual confidence starts within you, and I guess, like everything else, it does start with us because we're always aiming to work from the inside out.
Mhm.
So, but I think a lot of people, I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but certainly when I was younger, a lot of people were using sex as, to make them feel good.
Mm.
And it's not about what comes from the outside in. So, yeah, it's about coming from within. Can you just touch on that?
Yes, it's interesting when you said to feel good, because actually, sex from this space can feel really, really good. But I think you're
Mhm.
also, I get the sense, and tell me if this is this what you were thinking. It's kind of that sort of teenage thing. It's, oh, I'll be cool. I'll be with this person, and that will make
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
And it's like that's a long way from the energy of what I'm talking about
Yeah,
here.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because it's like the whole thing with sex is just so fraught. It's like, it's funny. I mean, I'm going to be publishing my book in the next couple of months, and it's like I'm kind of aware it's semi-autobiographical, and I'm just aware that some people will be, oh my God, she's had a lot of partners, and I'm like, oh, okay, and then other people will probably be, oh no, I've had way more, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all of us need to just let go of all of
Mhm.
that stuff. This is
Mhm.
you and your body. And sometimes people say to me, what does a healed shy girl look like? Well, we're all going to look different. It's
Mhm.
like, but what we will all have is a clarity and a confidence around ourselves and our bodies and what we desire sexually and sensually. But somebody else is like somebody else who I'm just working with, who has done a lot of work to change herself. What she likes and enjoys sexually is very different from me. It's like a lot of us as shy women probably are quite sensitive, so we may need to
Mhm.
have that sort of connection time that I talked about. But you may find out that you don't really need that. And I'm not saying there's something right about that just
Mhm.
because that's my path, but I do find it's a path that a lot of shy, sensitive women like. But you may not. You may find that your enjoyment of sex looks really, really different. So there isn't sort of a goal. And I mean, I can honestly say I'm still doing the work on this. It's like,
Mhm.
and And it's interesting, when you put yourself out into the world, hey, Sex and the Shy Girl, it's like all the places where I haven't, where there's stuff still up for me, come show themselves to me. And so um, it's an interesting journey, but I think that's the case, whatever you choose to put out into the world. I mean, probably your podcast has been an interesting journey for you.
Yeah, definitely. I've,
Definitely, yes.
I've had so many conversations that I never imagined I would be having.
I bet. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, why becoming sexually confident is a radical choice that can change way more than just your sex life?
Yes, good question. So, um, so as I said, but it's worth saying again because I keep on forgetting this. It's like choosing to look at what's true for you about sex is kind of going to the core of who you are as a human being. So it's like it's a very full-on thing to look at in terms of self-development. So when you have the guts to look at this, it's kind of like everything else is going to change too.
Yeah.
It's like, and we know it. It's like if someone is sexually happy, it's like there's kind of a radiance about them. It's like,
Mhm.
for me, I'm way happier than I used to be. It's like, I mean, you too, you and I are smiling and laughing on this
Mhm.
podcast. It's like, well, first of all, I'd never have been able to be on a podcast because I was way too shy. But the idea of coming on and smiling and laughing, it's like everything kind of has more of a flow to it when you step into more of your sexual energy. And I guess it requires it's like becoming more confident with sex. It's it's interesting because I've chosen to work with women. I never thought I'd do that. When I trained in sexological bodywork, I was like, well, I like men. I'll work with men. And it's like, it hasn't turned out to be like that at all. I love
Mhm.
working with women. But I just noticed that for me, putting this out into the world requires me all the time to kind of step up with how I think men will perceive me, men who I may be
Mhm.
dating will perceive me. And it is like it requires yeah, it really requires a courage to be seen with that and to talk about that and in a way to let them have their opinions. It's like I've had people say to me, you're still shy. It's like, oh, thank you very much. Or you're not shy at all. Oh, thank you very much. It's like, and that's been the journey for me putting this out there. Well, people can think what they like, and probably more people will think what they like because I'm
Mhm.
sort of trying to have a great I'm going to have a good marketing plan with my book, so there'll be more people who will be thinking. And it's like my job is just like, okay, I'm choosing to become more of me sexually and in every part of my life, but
Mhm.
choosing that with sex kind of allows it to come out in every part of my life too.
Yeah, I can understand that because yeah, you just radiate, like you said, and you're just happier. You got that bounce in your step. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what causes shyness with sex, and can it be overcome?
Yeah, so I think a lot of things cause shyness with sex, and
Mm.
yes, it can be overcome. So for me, my dad was extremely critical. He was verbally abusive. He wasn't. He was some occasionally physically abusive, but it was more verbal abuse. And as I said earlier, that kind of led to me shutting up, clamming up, and trying
Mm.
to. And then my mum, she said nothing about sex. She wasn't
Mm.
willing to talk about it. So it's like, British put it, it's like feelings can be a crescendo, but you never talk about it. So we definitely never talked about sex. And yet I picked up a lot of unsaid stuff about it being bad and wrong and
Mhm.
so all of that causes confusion and shyness and lack of confidence. So you're kind of, it's like for me, I was in this space of, oh, exploring my body. Oh, that's really, so, that's really, but it's bad. It's wrong. Well, why is it bad and wrong? It's like, well, I don't know, but everybody's, it's obvious that it's bad
Mm.
and wrong. It's sort of all this energetic mixed messages.
Mm.
And so that's from my family, but also it's like culturally it's like particularly female sexuality is like it's you look, I mean, I'm not very good on facts and history, but you look through history and you see that
Yeah.
women have been suppressed, burnt at the stake, and it's like there's sort of this fear that that unleashed female sexuality will, I don't know, cause something awful on our planet. And what I see is that actually some of the sort of global problems that we have are through not being able to express ourselves fully. It's,
Absolutely. I mean, you
yeah,
talk about being brought up very British culture. Well, the Asian culture is even worse. You don't even talk about anything, full stop, period. So, yeah, I can totally understand that.
yes, yeah, yeah. And where if you're listening to this and you're from different parts of the
Mm,
world, wherever you come from, there's likely to be kind of your own country's form of suppression of your
mm.
sexuality. And but even I remember that there was a guy, actually there was a guy at the youth club who had these parents who were very sexually liberal, and he was just as confused as the rest of us.
That's
It's
that's good to know.
Yeah, because really it's like I was saying, it's like there isn't a formula. So it's like
Mm,
maybe his parents thought, hey, we've got this right because we're swinging 60s people, and it's like, no, there isn't a formula. And I think it confused my friend. The rest of us were confused because we were told the opposite. And for me, it was exciting that he had these liberal parents, but actually it didn't really help him. Actually, what helps us is, well, what I think helps is being given some information, of course, when we're
mm,
kids, but also being being invited to explore in a safe way. And in a way, one of the things that I'm doing with Sex and the Shy Girl is giving you an education that you didn't have mainly we didn't have when we were younger. I mean, thank goodness the world is changing. It's like some of my
mm,
friends are parents, and it's like the way they're bringing up their kids, very very different. And
yeah.
kid, I think also is like not all kids, but some kids seem to just be coming in more clued up, shall we say, than
Mhm.
I ever was. And so there's a lot that's
Mm,
changing. But I suppose one of the things that I'm interested in, and it's interesting that you immediately picked up on that, is that if we are able to express ourselves fully, and that includes sexually, it
mm,
starts to change everything on the
mhm.
planet. The bigger problems,
Absolutely.
it's like we think we can solve these bigger problems with
Mm,
politics, but as
mm,
long as we feel sort of suppressed in every parts of our lives, but including with sex, how's anything going to get sorted out? So I'm not political, but that's my
mm.
that's my tiny bit of wisdom on that.
Absolutely, yeah. Tell me more about your work. What does it entail?
So basically, the three steps include what I've learned from every modality. So the healing work, it's like we have a lot of trauma that's held in our body, and so
Mm,
starting to become in tune with our body through the questions that I gave you earlier starts to change that. But there are also specific things that I do with these ladies which help them to release trauma from the past. So I had a lot of trauma from the way that my dad treated me, and so the healing work, the coaching work that I can do can help whatever that story is for you of healing of trauma from the past.
mhm,
um, we can work to release it from the cells of your body. And here's the thing, it's really interesting. This works in so many ways. But if you have, so say when my dad shouted at me, that had an energetic and a physical effect on me, and kind of the
mm,
unresolved trauma from the past gets held in your body. If you have lots of unresolved trauma in your body, you're not really going to be able to have the
mm,
full pleasure that's possible. So that's a big thing that I do with the ladies, is help them to release trauma from the past. And then I guess the life coaching aspect is about looking at it's like it's fantastic and it's essential to release trauma from the past. But we have to have a reason to do this. And this was what was
mm,
interesting with me when I was recovering, was that the time at which I started to recover really fully was at the time when I found out about energy healing. So I was an accountant at the time. I knew I didn't want to be an accountant. and the accountant had kind of contributed to me being ill. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Went to see the energy healer, and I was like, oh, energy healing's going to get me better. But in the same breath, I want to be one. I want to be an energy healer. And at this point, I was kind of an accountant who meditated, but I had no idea about energy healing. But I knew I wanted to be one. And so having that idea of, and it was just an idea. I had no idea what it entailed. It was just, yeah, I want that. So it's the same. It's like, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I have a sense that there's more with sex and sensuality, but no real idea what that's going to look like. Actually having that sense, even if it's just really intangible, helps you to move forward. And then, I
Absolutely.
mean, the sexological bodywork training was fantastic for me. And well, I guess I include that in terms of the sort of getting to know your body. But I also feel very, very grateful to the sexological bodywork training, because one of the things that stops us enjoying our bodies and stops us enjoying sex is basically the points of view that society has and that we think we should have. Oh, it's dirty, it's wrong, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm bad for enjoying. And honestly, by the time I came to sexological bodywork training, I didn't think I had many of those points of view, but the people I was training with, had been working in the, I'm going to say sex industry, but I mean, it's like they'd been working with sex and bodies, some of them for decades. And, we'd be sitting having tea in the break and they'd be talking about kink and prostate massage. And I'd be like, but being exposed to all of that just meant that there's not much that a client can say to me now. And I'm like, and it shocks me. And that's the space in which we can change, because there is actually nothing shocking about bodies and sex. There's nothing that should be shocking, but we've created it as shocking as a society. And so we have that in our heads that stops us from enjoying ourselves. So for me, having the sexological bodywork training helped me to let go of all of that. For the women that work with me, my kind of point of view, that I can come on and talk about my sex life and I can write a book about my sex life. It's just a space where the women can relax and they're like, oh, maybe I don't need to be so shy about everything. Maybe it's not going to kind of kill me if I start to share a bit about my sex life. So, and I've kind of divided it up: energy healing, life coach. I mean, it all comes together, because at this point, it's like, I think when you first do a training, you very much are of that training. But I think as time goes by, you just develop your own way of being with everything. But that's kind of my answer to your question.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me about your book, Sex and the Shy Girl, Fiona. Tell me all about that, and when's it out, and where afterwards we can go to get a copy and things like that.
Thank you. Thank you. First time I've talked about it publicly. So yesterday I had a very exciting conversation with somebody who's going to help me with kind of the Amazon tricky details, but also marketing it. So I guess it's going to be in the next 2 or 3 months. It's called Sex and the Shy Girl, and it literally is a sort of an illustration of where the shyness comes from, how we tend to make the shyness worse when we first start to have sex. And then it goes into an illustration of the 3 steps to recover from shyness, to become sexually confident. And it's illustrated basically with my kind of sexual history. Some of it is true, some of it isn't true. But it's kind of, I think it's a light, entertaining read, but it also gives you some pointers to what you can do yourself. It's like, obviously I work one-on-one with women and that goes way deeper, but the book actually has some pointers for what you can do yourself to start getting over with shyness with sex. And to be honest, even reading a book about sex will start to change your attitude towards sex. It's like anything we can do to sort of unhide the around sex starts to change it and starts to make us sort of a little bit more confident.
Excellent, definitely, and love to hear more about that. And you can post me a link once the book's out, and I can put it in the show notes at a later date. That's not.
That's brilliant. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have given us so many tools, daily steps, and tips to anyone that wants to start focusing on their sexual confidence, what would you say is the key takeaway?
I think the key takeaway is it starts with you.
Mm.
It's like we, as shy women, we often hope that a new lover or a husband or is going to come along and wake our bodies up and show us sexual pleasure that we've never had before. And yes, of course, that can happen. But it's like even if you have a really kind, amazing lover husband,
Mm.
you have to choose to have the pleasure. And this way that I work with women is a way of getting you to that space where you're like, yes, here I am. I have this body, like my body now, and I'm going to have the pleasure.
Absolutely. So, where can the listeners find you online, Fiona?
Yes, so the best place to find me is on Facebook. So you can look for my community, which is called Sex and the Shy Girl, or you can find me. I'm Fiona Cutts. Or you can email me. It's fiona@fionacutts.com.
Excellent. Links will be in the show notes. So, please do go ahead and connect with Fiona. And if there's any information you want, I'm sure she'll help you.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Definitely. So, thank you for sharing your insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, I'm sure you have helped so many other people and you've made a difference. I really like to acknowledge you for that, Fiona Cutts.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a total pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. And we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast. So, what is your definition of courage?
Oh, good question. I guess it's having the guts to do what you know is going to create greater for you, however yucky, icky it feels.